Lighten up, old man. It's a joke. Ugh.
Maybe the nursing home has a lifeguard.
I paid for your future, and you paid me back with this?
Tomorrow we pitch for his health, he'll cave.
Keep the pills going. He'll sign anything.
It's complicated, Henry. Let the grown-ups handle it.
Be realistic. Realistic. You can't manage this house. You ambushed me. We corrected the record.
I don't invest in fraudulent collateral.
This house was never yours.
You're blowing up my life.
After all we did for you.
You did it for the deed. Dusk. Leave the keys. Respect returns with the lock.
My son shoved me into the pool because I refused to grill the barbecue, and my whole family laughed. The same son I once paid $60,000 for college, $25,000 for a car, now tried to push me into a nursing home just to take my $600,000 house. I was humiliated that night, but what I uncovered later turned everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. I sat in the living room of the house I had owned for 43 years, a house that still carried the warmth of my late wife Linda in every corner. The late afternoon sun stretched across the hardwood floors I had installed with my own hands, glowing softly against the photographs on the wall. My eyes fell on David's graduation picture, framed in mahogany, his young face beaming, cap slightly tilted. I remembered the day I handed over the check for $60,000 to cover his college tuition. It was a sacrifice that took years of saving, working extra shifts, and cutting back on things Linda and I might have enjoyed. We told ourselves, it's worth it. It's for David's future. Later came the $25,000 car, shiny and new, sitting in our driveway as a gift for his first job. Then the wedding, $40,000 for a reception so grand that Linda and I ate leftovers for weeks. But we smiled, proud to see our son step into adulthood. Every cent, every sacrifice felt like an investment in family. Now, sitting in that same room, those memories burned with bitterness. Everything I had given was twisted into the sharp edge of betrayal. The house itself stood as the heart of this story, worth $600,000 now, but to me it was more than money. It was where Linda and I had poured sweat and laughter, planting roses along the fence, sanding down the old oak table where family dinners stretched long into the night. Above the fireplace hung our wedding photo, Linda's eyes bright with promise, and beside it the clock she had given me on our 20th anniversary. That clock still ticked faithfully even as the people I trusted most tried to erase me from my own home. To them, it was just property, numbers on paper. To me, it was everything, decades of life, love, and memory, pressed into wood, stone, and glass. The thought of David and Emily scheming to take it, to toss me into a nursing home so they could claim it, felt like someone tearing the very heart out of my chest. My home was not just an asset, it was my soul's witness. I thought about the shift that had crept in slowly. David no longer called me Dad. The word that once carried affection had been replaced with the old man, tossed around carelessly like I was nothing more than a burden. Emily's glances were sharper, her voice clipped, as if every step I took, every cough, every pause at the dinner table was an inconvenience. I remembered standing in the kitchen one night, overhearing her say, "He's just in the way, David. We need space. We need the house." I clenched my hands until the veins stood out, yet said nothing. Later that night, alone in the quiet, I whispered to Linda's photo, "Do you see what they're doing? They've made me a stranger in my own home." The words barely left my lips before my chest tightened. It felt like speaking to the dead was the only way left for me to be heard. The betrayal became clearer when I replayed the memory of that barbecue. David had pushed me into the pool, laughing as my body hit the cold water. I heard Sophie's giggle, innocent but still piercing, and the mocking tone in Emily's voice. My heart had sunk deeper than my body that day. The humiliation was complete, an old man reduced to entertainment, a punchline in the story of his own decline. But humiliation is a powerful teacher. It strips away illusions. It forces you to see truth. That moment tore the blindfold from my eyes. I realized I was not respected, not loved the way I had believed. I was being used, drained of what little strength and money I had left, while they plotted for the house that had carried my entire life. Respect had been traded for greed. Love had been bartered for a deed. At first, I stumbled through waves of shock. I told myself maybe I was overreacting, maybe David was just stressed. But the anger swelled, heavier with each thought. I began to wonder, what else had he done behind my back? I remembered the signatures I barely recalled signing after Linda's passing. Could he have tricked me into loans, debts, things I never agreed to? My mind raced, each suspicion more poisonous than the last. It was no longer just about words spoken in anger or laughter at my expense. It was about control, about money, about my very stability. Rage and sorrow became companions, walking side by side within me. I felt unhinged, betrayed, and yet, strangely, alive. Because in that storm of emotions came a flicker of clarity. I was not finished. I would not let them rob me without a fight. I let my gaze wander around the room again, anchoring myself in the details Linda had loved. The rug she had chosen, the curtains she had sewn, the vase she had picked up at a flea market because she said it looked like it belonged in a home that had stories to tell. Every object whispered of her presence, her care, her faith in this family, and every object sharpened my resolve. If David thought I was too weak, too lost in grief, he was wrong. I was grieving, yes, but grief could become strength. Betrayal could become fuel. I whispered again, this time not with despair, but with steel in my voice. Linda, they think I'm broken, but I'm not. I'm still here, and I will not let them destroy what we built. The thought of action grew in me, steady and determined. My mind went to the basement where the old filing cabinet still stood. Linda had kept every receipt, every deed, every insurance paper neatly stacked. I had avoided opening it after she passed, afraid of the pain it would stir. But now it called to me like a lighthouse in fog. The answers might be there. Proof, leverage, the truth buried in ink and paper. I could almost see Linda's neat handwriting on envelopes, labeling each folder. My chest tightened, but this time not from grief alone. This was the purpose. This was the direction. I stood slowly, my knees aching, but my resolve firm. The house creaked under my steps, familiar as an old friend, as I whispered, maybe in there I'll find the beginning of my fight. And with that thought, I knew Chapter 3 of this story was waiting. If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 1 below to let me know you're here with me. I went down to the basement after the house settled into its late afternoon hush. The air was cool and faintly damp, the way it always is below ground, like the house was breathing slow. A single bulb hummed above the stairs. Dust floated in the cone of light. I stood there for a moment and let my eyes adjust. The old filing cabinet waited in the corner. Beige metal. A little rust on the bottom edge. Linda had kept everything in there. Every receipt, every deed, every policy. Her neat handwriting lived on those manila tabs. I could almost see her hand moving, slow and careful, writing labels, stacking folders in straight lines. I touched the drawer pull. Cold. I pulled it open. The smell of paper came up, old and dry. I ran my fingers across the labeled folders. Insurance, taxes, medical, house, banking. Her order soothed me, even now. I took a breath and slid out the folder marked house. Inside was the original deed from decades ago, the mortgage we paid off 15 years back, the letter from the bank congratulating us on owning our home free and clear. I traced the embossing on the notary stamp with my thumb. Then there were newer papers. I felt my stomach tighten. A second mortgage for $60,000, dated around the time Linda died. My name sat on the signature line. My name, but it looked off. The first letter is too rounded, and the tail on the last letter is too short. I stared at it for a long time. I tried to remember signing. I could not. I set that one down and found a home equity line of credit for $20,000, opened 6 years ago. Then another loan for $35,000 3 years back. Each had my name. Each sat heavy in my hands. I thought about the months after Linda's funeral, the fog, the pills to sleep, the long mornings where coffee tasted like dust and the days slid into each other. I remembered David taking over the mail. He said it was to help. He said he would bring me whatever needed my attention. He stood by the kitchen island, smiling, a hand on my shoulder, saying we would get through it. I believed him. He is my son. You want to believe your son. I kept turning pages. I found statements from a bank David used for his consulting work. Transfers lined up with the dates of the loans. Money moved out fast. Not to the house, not to repairs. To his business, to travel. To a store where Emily liked to buy handbags. Some entries made my jaw clench. Flights, dinners, weekend getaways. None of it included me. None of it kept the roof over my head. My vision pulsed at the edges. I set the papers down and pressed my fingers to my temples. The house creaked above me. Somewhere, the refrigerator motor kicked on. I heard a car door outside, then the soft thud of the front door closing. Voices drifted down the stairs. David's deeper, Emily's quicker. I held my breath and listened. The words were muffled at first, then grew clear as they walked through the main floor. Tomorrow, David said, confident, we present it like it's for his health. He'll go along to keep the peace. He will, Emily said, and once he's out, we can finally get the appraisal and start the renovation plan. Dad's ready to invest, but he wants the title clean. We have to move. The title? Clean. Those words scraped across me like sandpaper. I caught the edge of the cabinet, steadied myself, and forced my breath to slow. In and out, in and out. I slid the papers back into the folder and closed the drawer part way, leaving it just open enough that I could return without a scrape of metal. I climbed halfway up the stairs and paused. I did not want the basement between us when I asked the first question. I needed a room with light. I needed the weight of my own walls at my back. I stepped into the kitchen. David stood by the sink, phone in hand, swiping, casual, like he owned the place. Emily sorted mail at the island, flicking envelopes into little piles. "David," I said. My voice sounded steady, and that surprised me. "Which bank handles the home equity line?" He glanced up, quick smile, then back down. "Why?" His tone came out light, like a joke was coming. "I found some statements I didn't recognize," I said. "I want to get my eyes on everything." He gave a little laugh that wasn't a laugh. "Dad, you don't have to worry about that. I've been managing the household finances for years. You know that." "I know you've been touching the mail," I said. "I'm asking about the bank." He lifted his eyes again. This time they were cool. "First National," he said. "But again, Dad, I've got it under control." He used the phrase people use when they want you to drop something. Under control, meaning stay out. "I'd like to see the paperwork," I said. "All of it?" Emily slid an envelope toward me with 2 fingers. "He gets confused," she said, speaking past me to David. "Remember last week, he thought the electric bill was late. It wasn't." She looked at me then, head tilted, voice soft, the way people talk to a child. "It's complicated, Henry." "It's my house," I said. That landed. For a second, the room went still. David set his phone down. He cleared his throat and walked around the island like he might put a hand on my arm. He stopped himself halfway. "Dad," he said, "I know you feel protective of the house, but you can't keep up with it anymore. You saw how hard the yard work was last week. You nearly fell. I don't want to be dramatic, but we have to be realistic." Be realistic. Another phrase used to move someone aside. I let it pass through me. I would not break here. I would not argue in circles. Not yet. "I'll call First National tomorrow," I said. "I want copies, and I want to talk to someone about the signature rules on draws." David smiled again, the same smile he used when he talked to contractors who arrived late. A smile that had teeth under it. "You don't need to do that," he said. "Really?" "I'm going to," I said. He shrugged like it made no difference. Suit yourself. We ate in a quiet lodge that night. Forks clicked against plates. The evening news murmured from the living room. I watched their faces in the blue light, the way they looked at each other, the small nods that passed between them. I knew I could not force them to show their whole hand at the table. I didn't need to. I had the cabinet. I had the paper. I had Linda's order. And now I had direction. When the dishes were stacked and the dishwasher hummed, I took my coffee to the back patio. The sky was pale lavender. The roses Linda planted along the fence carried the last gold of daylight in their petals. I sat, warm mug in my hands, and let memory and anger settle into something firmer. I said her name under my breath. "Linda," I whispered, "I need your calm. I need your steady hand." The wind moved the leaves. The clock inside ticked. Something in me answered back, not a voice, a feeling. The same feeling I had when we decided to take on the first mortgage together. We would make a plan. We would stick to it. I went to bed with that thought and woke before dawn. The house was quiet. The world had that early blue tint. I made coffee, black, strong. I wrote down the list I heard in my head. Call First National. Gather copies. Call the county recorder to check the last deed on file. Call Michael. Keep my tone light with David. Do not tip my hand. Do not give away what I know until I know more. At 9 on the dot, I called First National's customer line and asked for the home equity department. I gave my name. I gave my address. I read the last 4 digits of my Social Security number. A young man with a clipped voice pulled up my account. "We show an open HELOC established 6 years ago," he said. $20,000 limit. Several draws in the first 2 years. Minimum payments have been made on time. "I want copies of the application and any draw authorizations with signatures," I said. "I want to pick them up in person." He hesitated. I heard keys clicking. "We can have those ready at the Main Street branch by this afternoon," he said. "You'll need a photo ID." "I'll be there," I said. "Please put a note on the account. No additional draws without in-person ID verification by me. Not my son, not my daughter-in-law. Me?" He cleared his throat. "Sir, that's not standard on this type of line, but I can add a note." "Add it," I said, "and flag unusual activity." "Understood." I thanked him and hung up. Then I called the county recorder's office. A woman answered with a voice as if she had seen everything twice. I gave her the parcel number from the tax bill. She pulled the records. "The last deed on file," I said. "What date do you show?" She read the date. 6 months ago. My breath went shallow. I asked for the name of the grantee. She read my son's name. She went on, professional, routine. It was recorded with a notarized signature. I thanked her and set the phone down with care. My fingers shook, not from fear this time, from the way anger becomes focused when it finds a path. I went back to the cabinet. I found what I expected now, a copy of the quitclaim deed. My name again, not quite right again, an imitation that would pass a glance but not a microscope. I held it up to the light and saw the pressure of the pen. Hesitant. Someone is copying instead of moving with muscle memory. I saw the notary stamp from a shop across town, one of those places that sells packing supplies and does shipping. I kept reading. The transfer cited estate planning. It said no money changed hands. It said I had conveyed the property to David out of natural love and affection. The words made my throat ache. The front door opened and closed. David's voice rolled through the entry. "Morning," he called. His tone was cheery, like a salesman on the first call of the day. He came into the kitchen and poured coffee into a travel mug. "I'm heading to meet a contractor," he said. "We're going to talk about knocking down the wall between the dining room and living room. Open concept. It'll be great for resale." "For resale?" I repeated. He grinned. Just thinking ahead. I looked at him. He looked everywhere but at the papers in my hand. I could have asked him then. I could have held the deed up like an accusation. I did not. Not yet. I took a sip of coffee and kept my voice neutral. Do you remember which notary did the last deed? I asked. I'd like to thank them for fitting us in. He blinked. Not sure, he said. It was months ago. Why? I like to remember who does us favors, I said. It's polite. He checked his watch. Gotta run, he said, and he was out the door in 2 long strides, the smell of his cologne trailing him. When the house settled again, I took my stack of copies and slid them into a yellow envelope. I put that envelope in a plain canvas grocery bag. Then I picked up the phone and called Michael. He married my niece. He sends a card on my birthday every year and never misses a funeral. He is young but steady. He picks his words. He listens. Uncle Henry, he said, how are you holding up? I found something, I said. I need your eyes on it. His voice changed, not colder, sharper. Tell me what you have. I told him about the HELOC, about the second mortgage, about the $35,000 loan, about the deed recorded 6 months ago. My voice shook when I described the signatures. I heard him set a pen down on his desk. Bring me everything, he said. Don't confront David yet. Don't tip anything. We need copies, timelines, and we need to see how the notary was handled. I'll run the signatures by a forensic examiner I use. We'll also pull prescription records if we can. You mentioned pills after Aunt Linda passed. I slept a lot back then, I said. I don't remember details, but I remember David handing me a water glass each night. I remember him saying, "Take this, it will help." We'll ask your primary for your file, he said, and we'll look into Dr. Collins if that's the name you recall. For now, you do nothing out of the ordinary. Smile, nod, let him think the old plan is working. I nodded even though he could not see me. They think I'm weak, I said, but they're about to learn they are wrong. That's right, Michael said. One more thing. I know you want to freeze everything right now, but if we lock every door today, they'll smell danger and stall. We need them to move. When they move, we catch them with documents in hand. We time it. I closed my eyes and let that settle. It went against my instinct to lock the gates. But I understood. Sometimes you do not slam the door. You wait behind it. After lunch, I drove to the Main Street branch. The teller fetched a banker in a navy suit. The banker asked for my ID and returned with a thin folder and a practiced smile. He laid authorizations on the desk one by one. My name scrolled across lines in familiar ink. The strokes were close to mine. Close, but not mine. It felt like someone wearing your coat and trying your walk. I leaned in until the letters blurred, then came back into focus. I asked for certified copies. He obliged. I slid them into my envelope. I kept my breath even. Would you like to place any temporary holds? He asked pleasantly. We can add alerts. Add alerts, I said, but let activity route through my notice, not to my son. I want a call if a new draw is attempted. He typed, nodding as he read the screen. We can do that. I thanked him and walked back to the car. The sky had gone thin and white. A wind chased leaves down the curb. I held the envelope in my lap for a moment and traced the edge with my finger. The paper inside felt like a weight and like a power at the same time. On my way home, I stopped at the county building. I requested certified copies of the recorded deed and anything linked to my parcel over the last 10 years. The clerk stamped each page with a sharp thump. I slid those into the envelope, too. I drove home the long way. I needed the extra minutes to steady what was boiling in my chest. The house looked peaceful as I turned into the driveway. Roses nodded as the breeze moved. The porch needed a sweep. Normal things. I went inside and found Emily in the den with a notebook open. She clicked her pen and looked up with a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. Hey, she said, we were just talking. We think touring a few communities would be good this week. The sooner we get you settled, the sooner we can start work on the house. You'll love it, Henry. They have activities. Bridge nights. A library. A library. The way she said it made it sound like a treat for a toddler. Maybe, I said. I laid my car keys in the bowl by the door. I kept my voice so even that it surprised me. Let's talk when David is home. I want both of you here when we discuss it. She nodded, satisfied, like a plan had slid into place. She went back to her notes. I stood there a moment and watched her write. She wrote the word renovation with a little flourish at the end. Then she muttered under her breath. Just a whisper, like the sound of paper sliding across paper. Keep the pills going, she said. He'll sign anything. The words did not make sense at first. They floated, loose and harmless, like a feather in the air. Then they struck. They struck like a hammer to glass. My ears rang. The room tilted a little. I caught the doorframe with my hand. I think I made a sound. I hope I did not. I watched her tap the pen against her notebook, humming, content. She had no idea I stood there, hearing her plan, hearing my son's plan. Keep the pills going. He'll sign anything. My throat tightened so much I could not swallow. I went to the kitchen and ran water into a glass until it spilled over my fingers. Cold shock brought me back. Rage rose, hot, but it carried something else with it now. Direction, proof that what I feared had a voice. I set the glass down and wiped my hand with a towel. I did not confront her. Not yet. I looked at the clock. The hands moved slowly, steadily, honestly. At 6, David walked in with takeout. He set cartons on the counter and smiled like a host. Good news, he said. Mr. Bennett is available for dinner on Sunday. We'll keep it small. We'll talk investment terms. It'll be the start of something great. For whom? I said. The words slipped out before I could stop them. He pretended not to hear. We ate. Chopsticks clicked. The TV droned on about the weather. After, I asked David to step onto the back patio. The sky had turned deep blue. The porch light made a small circle at our feet. I have a question about the bank, I said. I need to be clear on one thing. He leaned against the railing, casual. Shoot. If anyone tries to pull money from the home equity line, they need my approval, I said. In person, that's what I told the bank. His smile thinned. Dad, that's not necessary. You're overthinking this. Maybe, I said. But that's what I told them. He let out a breath and looked past me at the roses. He spoke softly, like coaxing a nervous animal. You've been through a lot, he said. Sometimes things feel bigger than they are. You can trust me. I trusted you, I said. Trust is a checkbook, David. You drew it down. He straightened, and the softness fell away. You're being ungrateful, he said. Emily and I have held this house together for years. We pay utilities. We schedule repairs. You think you can just step in and run things? It's not the 1980s anymore. I am not trying to run things, I said. I am taking back what is mine. He laughed once. You sound dramatic. Maybe this is why it would be better for you to be in a community with support, less stress. There it was, laid out again. I nodded slowly. Maybe you're right, I said. My voice went calm, almost gentle. Maybe a place with support is best. We should tour a few. Soon. Relief washed over his face so fast it almost shone. He clapped me lightly on the shoulder. You won't regret it, he said. This will be good for everyone. Everyone, I repeated. I promised myself not to look at Emily through the window. I promised myself not to give away the fury sitting in my chest like a live coal. When the house went quiet that night, I took the yellow envelope to my bedroom and slid it under the false bottom of the cedar chest. Linda's quilt lay on top of the chest, soft from years. I placed my palm on it and closed my eyes. They think I've lost, I whispered. But the game is just beginning. The next morning, I drove to Michael's office with the envelope beside me on the passenger seat. The building was brick, trim, painted white, and a brass plate with his name by the door. He met me in the lobby and led me back to a quiet room with a heavy table. He set out a legal pad and a pen. I laid each document down like a card in a slow game. He read in silence. He asked a few questions. Dates, places. Who was present? He took notes in tight, square letters. "We're going to do this right," he said when I finished. "I'll get the signatures examined. I'll subpoena prescription records if needed. We'll talk to the notary. We're not going to shout. We're going to build a clean line. When we move, it will be one motion." "What about the bank?" I asked. "I put alerts, not a full freeze." "That's good," he said. "We want to know when they try to move money. We want to know who, where, and when, and then we use it." He looked up at me for a long second, measuring. "It will be hard to sit on your hands while we build this," he said. "Can you do that?" I thought of Emily's whisper. "Keep the pills going. He'll sign anything." I thought of David's hand on my shoulder at the sink, the way he used the word realistic, like a doorstop. I thought of Linda's handwriting on every folder. I nodded. "I can," I said. "They think I am weak. They're about to find out the cost of underestimating me." He smiled, small and genuine. "Good," he said. "Go home. Keep your routine. If they push the nursing home plan, lean in. Agree. Let them move the pieces where they want. We'll be ready." I left his office lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I had a partner, heavier because I knew the path would be narrow and I would need to place each step with care. On the drive home, I rehearsed the next conversation in my head. I rehearsed my tone. Steady, reasonable, the tone of a man who has surrendered. I practiced the sentences until they felt natural in my mouth. When I walked in, David and Emily were at the dining table with brochures spread out like placemats. Smiling people on glossy pages. A man my age playing checkers. A woman pouring tea. A sunroom full of plants and soft chairs. Emily looked up, bright. "We found a place with a library," she said. "They have a woodworking room, too. You used to like that, right?" "I did," I said. "This all looks nice." David leaned forward, eager. "They have a bus to the grocery store twice a week, and a nurse on site. We could schedule a tour for Thursday, just to look." "Let's do it," I said. "I want to make this easy for you both." The joy that crossed their faces stung me because it landed on a memory of another joy, the day I handed David the keys to that first car, the day he hugged me hard and thanked me like he understood what the gift cost. Now he smiled because he thought he had won. He thought the door had opened and the old man would walk through it without a backward glance. He did not see the hand on the knob. I excused myself and went to the bedroom. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed. My heart thudded in my chest. I looked at Linda's photo on the nightstand, her smile in black and white, eyes full of all the years we thought we had. "I'm going to bring this home back to you," I whispered. "To us." When I came out, David was on the phone, pacing, his voice low and quick. I caught the words appraisal and timeline. He glanced at me and turned away, his hand over the receiver. Emily tapped a pen against a brochure and smiled at me, a smile like a door closing. I made dinner. I washed dishes. I watched the local news. Normal things. I let the minutes be ordinary. The night moved along. The house breathed its slow breath. At 10, I switched off the lamp, and the room went soft and quiet. They think I am harmless. They think I am done. They think the papers in the cabinet are blind. They think the house is already theirs. Let them think it. Let them walk forward. Let them set the table. I will bring the guests. I will bring the truth. And when the truth sits down, it will not rise until the meal is finished. I slept better than I had in months. In the morning, I would sign nothing. In the morning, I would tour a place with a woodworking room and a library, and I would nod and smile and tuck details into my pocket like spare nails. In the morning, I would be the man they think I am, for a little while longer. Then I would be the man I have always been, the man who built a house with his hands, the man who laid floors straight and true, the man who knows how to find a stud in a wall by sound alone, the man who knows a beam from a facade, the man who knows when to wait and when to strike. If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 2 below to let me know you're here with me. Sunday came with a gray sky and a steady hush over the neighborhood, the kind of quiet that settles before a storm. I woke early and walked the halls of my own house like a guest. The roses Linda planted nodded in a faint breeze. The clock she gave me kept perfect time. I set the coffee to brew and checked the folder again. Certified copies of the quitclaim deed. Copies of the home equity line documents. Draw authorizations with a signature that looked like mine until you looked longer. Michael's short notes were careful and calm. The plan was simple. Do not raise my voice. Do not argue points I could prove with paper. Let them talk. Then set the record on the table and watch where it falls. At 9:40, the phone rang on the wall by the pantry. An old landline, solid and stubborn, with a cord that remembers when our boy learned to walk. I lifted the receiver and said my name. A polite voice introduced himself as a representative from First National's fraud team. He confirmed my address. He asked if he was speaking to the primary on the home equity line. Yes, I said. My mouth had gone dry. My hand tightened around the receiver. Mr. Henry, he said, slow and careful, do you confirm an additional $15,000 draw requested yesterday afternoon using a signed authorization that arrived by fax? The room tilted. It was as if the floor fell 2 inches, and my stomach dropped with it. I closed my eyes and pictured the yellow envelope. I pictured my name in ink that tried to mimic the weight of 40 years of writing checks and signing birthday cards. I remembered Emily's whisper. Keep the pills going. He will sign anything. No, I said. Each word was a step. I do not confirm. I did not sign anything yesterday. I do not approve of that drawing. He was quiet for a beat. I could hear him typing. Paper rustled on his end. Thank you, he said. We are placing a hold pending investigation. For our records, can you tell me the last time you signed any authorization related to this line? Not in years, I said. Please flag the account. Any draw requires me in person with identification. It is noted, he said. We will escalate and contact you with the next steps. I set the receiver back on its hook with care, like it might break if I moved too fast. My legs did not trust me, so I sat. I looked at the old dining table I had sanded and varnished until Linda said it shone like a lake at sunrise. The wood was warm under my palm. Something inside me hardened into a clean edge. I was not crazy. I was not confused. The plan was real. The danger was current. The call made it plain. It also gave me something better than anger. It gave me a line I could pull, hand over hand, until the whole tangle came up into the light. Michael called 10 minutes later. He said he was leaving his office early to prepare. He said to keep the evening plan as is. He said the medical records were coming together. He said words I did not want but needed to hear. Lorazepam, alprazolam, zolpidem. Prescriptions were filled during those months after Linda's funeral, doses that would make any signature unreliable. He said he would bring a letter from my primary confirming what the chart showed. He would bring a short report from a handwriting examiner noting the inconsistencies in the signatures on the mortgage and the deed. He spoke in a steady tone that kept me on the right side of fear. Do not confront them before dinner, he said. Let them relax into their story. Let Mr. Bennett sit down. Then I will ring the bell. I thanked him and hung up. I stood and straightened the living room. I placed Linda's photo on the mantel where the evening light would find it. I set coasters out. I put a small notebook beside my chair to have a place for my hands if they shook. I breathed in and out, in and out. When the doorbell rang at 6 sharp, I was ready to obey one rule. Do not flinch. Mr. Bennett arrived in a crisp navy blazer and carried a heavy bottle of wine with a silver label. He shook my hand with both of his, the way older men do when they want to communicate warmth and strength at once. He told me he was sorry for my loss, even though Linda had been gone for years. He said he admired how well the house was kept. He looked around like a man who buys buildings, not flowers. David came in behind him with a smile bright enough to light a highway. Emily floated, soft voice, soft steps, carrying platters to the dining room as if she were the lady of the house in a magazine. I watched the details. The way David's hand sat at the small of her back, guiding. The way he looked at Mr. Bennett every time he laughed, measuring the effect. The way Emily's eyes flashed to me and away, quick and sharp, when I moved into the room. We sat down to dinner, roast chicken, potatoes, green beans, simple food presented like a celebration. David started talking before his napkin was in his lap. He spoke of his consulting, of markets he read well, of scale. He said Mr. Bennett's investment would allow him to unlock the full potential of the property, and then corrected himself, of the business. Emily laughed and placed her fingers on his wrist. Mr. Bennett listened, like a man who has sat across tables from many hopeful sons. He nodded in the right places. He asked about timelines. He asked about security. He asked what collateral would anchor the deal in case the wind shifted. David's smile did not tremble. "We have a clean title," he said. "The house is valued at around $600,000. We have plans to renovate, open the main floor, and update the kitchen. The equity is more than enough to provide comfort for any partner." His words slid over me like cold water. Clean title, equity, comfort. He was offering the bones of my life as a cushion. I took a sip of water. It tasted like metal. After the plates were cleared, we moved to the living room. The fire was not lit. It did not need to be. The air was warm from the oven and from the heat of their hope. David set a leather portfolio on the coffee table and opened it with a small flourish. Pages gleamed under the lamp. He began to talk through terms again, slower now, like a man about to take a swing he knows he can complete. "I would like to say one thing before numbers," I said. My voice was quiet even. The room turned toward me in a small pivot. David blinked, surprised. Emily set her wineglass down. "Of course," Mr. Bennett said politely. "I want to thank you for coming into my home," I said. "This house belongs to my late wife and me. It always has. It was purchased in 1980. The mortgage was paid off 15 years ago, and it has been maintained with our labor and our money. I am proud of it. I am protective of it." David's smile strained at the edges. He reached for the portfolio as if to shift attention back to numbers. "Dad, we talked about this," he said lightly. "We are all on the same page." The doorbell rang, soft, ordinary, but the sound cut the evening like a line drawn with a knife. I stood. "I will get it," I said. David half rose. "I can," he said. He did not want an interruption. "I have it," I said, and walked to the entryway. When I opened the door, Michael stood there in a dark suit, with a leather briefcase and a set to his jaw that I had seen only once before, at a funeral where he stood beside a friend who had no family left. He nodded to me and then looked past my shoulder into the living room. He stepped inside and closed the door with a soft click. The house seemed to hold its breath. "Good evening," he said as he entered the room. "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Michael. I am an attorney and a relative. I have business with Mr. Henry that is relevant to your meeting." David stood. He held his palms out the way men do when they want to suggest calm without feeling it. "This is not the time," he said. "We are in the middle of a private conversation." "It is the perfect time," Michael said. He placed his briefcase on the coffee table, neatly to the side of David's portfolio, and opened it. He spoke to Mr. Bennett with the ease of a man who knows papers will do his talking. "Sir, I understand you are considering an investment and that this house is being offered as collateral. Before you proceed, there are facts about the title and about recent activity on the home equity line that you should see." Mr. Bennett sat very still. He folded his hands and gave a small nod. David's face drained, then mottled, then drained again. Emily made a sound in her throat like a laugh caught on a fishhook. Michael laid out the documents one by one. Certified copy of the recorded quitclaim deed dated 6 months ago. A short statement from a handwriting examiner noting material differences between Henry's verified signature and the signatures on the deed and on the second mortgage from 8 years back. A letter from Henry's primary physician listing prescriptions issued in the months after Linda's death and the known effects of those medications on memory and capacity for informed consent. Copies of draw authorizations on the home equity line with dates and dollar amounts, including a banknote that a $15,000 draw requested yesterday had been flagged as disputed by the primary account holder. He did not raise his voice. He did not dramatize. He slid the papers like a dealer who has no reason to stack the deck. He let each rest where it fell and then let silence do a layer of work. David reached for the deed and Michael put his hand over it. David pulled his hand back as if burned. "These papers are misinterpreted," he said. His voice was higher than before. He turned to Mr. Bennett. "My father wanted the deed transfer. It is estate planning. He forgets sometimes, but we have been handling things for years." Michael did not look at David. He kept his eyes on Mr. Bennett. "The county records show a quitclaim from Henry to David, recorded 6 months ago. The notary stamp belongs to a shipping store across town. The signature on the deed does not match Henry's typical signature pattern. The same pattern difference appeared on the $60,000 mortgage 8 years ago. There is a documented trail of funds moving from liens on this property to bank accounts used for David's business and personal expenses. There is no corresponding work on the house." Emily stood up too fast, and her wine glass fell. It hit the rug and rolled, leaving a red comet tail she would later say she could not see. "You do not understand," she said, her voice low and hot. "He is old. He needed help. We stepped in because no one else would." I felt my mouth form a line that had weight in it. "I needed love," I said, "not a hand in my pocket." Mr. Bennett lifted his glasses from the bridge of his nose and cleaned them with a folded handkerchief. He balanced them in his fingers like something delicate and valuable, and not always trustworthy. "Mr. Henry," he said, turning to me, "do you assert that you did not knowingly sign this deed?" "I assert that I did not," I said. Michael placed one more paper on the table. It was a short letter he had drafted that afternoon. It cited state law on undue influence, incapacity, and fraud in the procurement of signatures. It gave notice that any further attempt to encumber the house would be contested, and that any party taking an interest with knowledge of the dispute would do so at their peril. The letter's language was plain. Its effect was not. "Sir," Michael said to Mr. Bennett, "any arrangement that treats this house as clean collateral would be unsafe. The title is contested. The home equity line is under fraud review. The primary is not consenting." David made a sound like he had been punched. He leaned forward and planted both hands on the table. Papers shifted. The room pulled tight. He looked at me as if he could make this stop with a look he used on me when he was 5 and wanted one more cookie. "Dad," he said, the word forced and flat, "you're blowing up my life." I wanted to say many things. I wanted to say he had blown up mine in slow motion for years. I wanted to say that I had watched him laugh while I dripped pool water on my own deck. I wanted to say that the first time he called me old man, something in me had cracked and then said again, harder. I wanted to say that kindness is not the same as weakness. I did not say any of it. I said the only thing that needed to be said. "This house was never yours." Emily's face crumpled. She sat down as if her knees had let go. "We were going to pay it back," she said. It was a whisper at first, then louder. "We were going to pay it back when the business took off. We were. Michael did not comment. Mr. Bennett placed his glasses back on his nose and stood. He looked at the papers one last time, and then at David the way a man looks at a horse that refuses every fence on the course. "I will not proceed," he said. His voice was quiet but carried. "I do not invest in ventures that begin with fraudulent collateral." He turned to me. "Mr. Henry, I am sorry you have had to endure this. I wish you strength." He shook my hand. He nodded to Michael. He did not look at David again. He walked to the door and let himself out with the soft confidence of a man who knows exit is the only honorable move left. Silence filled the room. It was not empty. It pressed. It rang. David stared at the door like a person staring at a closed window in a fire. Then the heat on his face turned to something else. Anger. He pointed at Michael. "You set this up," he said. "You ambushed me in my own home." "In his home," Michael said, and did not move. David's chest rose and fell fast. His voice turned sharp and young, the way it had when he was a teenager, telling him he could not borrow the car. "You will regret this," he said to me. "You do not know what you are doing." "I know exactly what I am doing," I said. "I am setting things straight, and I am done being bullied in the house Linda and I built." I stood. The room felt taller. The breath in my lungs felt clean. "You will gather your things," I said calmly. "Tomorrow you will leave. The locks will change at dusk." Emily made a strangled sound and covered her face with both hands. David took a step toward me and stopped. There is a line most sons do not cross, even when they are lost. He saw it then. He did not cross it. Michael closed his briefcase. "You will receive formal notice in the morning," he said. "There will be a petition to void the deed. There will be notices to lenders. There will be a complaint if needed. Tonight, you leave the documents on the table. If you remove them, I will consider it interference." His voice stayed measured. He spoke like a man marking stones along a path. David looked around the room as if a door might open somewhere I could not see. None did. He kicked the fallen wineglass out of his way with the side of his shoe. It rolled and came to rest against the baseboard. "Unbelievable," he said, but the fury in his voice had thinned. Under it, I heard fear. "Believe it," I said. "Every word of it." Michael walked to the door and waited. I stood beside him. Emily stayed in the chair with her face in her hands, small, shuddering breaths escaping through her fingers. David gathered his portfolio with slow motions as if speed might make things better. He slid papers inside, then realized he was packing the wrong stack and put them back. He took one more look at me, something like a question forming and breaking in his eyes. Then he left without asking it. The door closed with a sound that felt final, even though I knew we had more steps ahead. The house breathed again. The room felt larger. I could hear the clock in the hall. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. "Well done," he said. He did not say more. He did not need to. He picked up the certified copies and put them back in his case. The kitchen looked like a stage after the actors had gone. Plates stacked by a sink, a candle guttering down to a puddle. The air held the faint smell of wine and rosemary. I poured water into a glass and held it with both hands until the cool reached my pulse. I walked to the mantel and looked at Linda's photo. I spoke low enough that only she and I could hear. "We did it," I said. "We turned the tables." Michael reviewed the next steps. In the morning, he would file the first motion to void the deed on grounds of fraud and undue influence. He would present the physician a letter with a short affidavit from my doctor. He would attach the examiner's notes. He would send formal notices to the bank to maintain the hold and to require in-person identification for any action. He would draft a letter instructing David and Emily to vacate within 24 hours. He would prepare for the reality that they might try one more move. He would be ready. I walked him to the door. He paused on the porch and looked at the roses. "She had a good eye," he said. "She did," I said. He nodded once and left. The street was quiet. The porch light made a small golden circle that did not touch the sidewalk. I closed the door and stood in the entry, listening. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear water ticking in the heating pipes. I could hear my own heart, steady, not mad, not afraid. Steady. I cleaned the broken wine without comment. I straightened the room. I put the documents where they belonged. I turned off the lamps. The house dimmed to the same soft light that tucked us in for years. I went to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My palms were open on my knees. For the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like peace, not punishment. They thought I would break. They thought I would sign anything. They thought the house was a number and I was a shrug. They were wrong. Tonight made it plain. Tomorrow would make it law. Outside, a car door slammed. Footsteps hurried away. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. The clock on the dresser clicked to the next minute. I breathed in. I breathed out. Chapter 5 was waiting, and I was ready to meet it with both feet on the ground. Feeling overlooked and dismissed like that is hard, isn't it? If you believe every person deserves to be seen and to get justice, comment the word justice. Now see what they will do to change that next. If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 3 below to let me know you're here with me. The morning after that long, heavy night, the house felt strangely lighter. The echoes of David's voice, sharp and desperate, no longer clung to the walls. Emily's cries were gone. What remained was quiet, clean, and solid, the kind of silence that holds you rather than crushes you. Michael had kept his word. Papers were filed before noon. Notices were delivered. By evening, the locks were changed. A locksmith with weathered hands drilled, replaced, and tightened new bolts into doors Linda and I once painted together. The sound of each screw tightening felt like a chapter closing. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like my home was truly mine again. David and Emily were given 24 hours to pack their things. They left under a pale sky with cardboard boxes that seemed too light for all they had taken from me. I stood at the upstairs window, watching without being seen. David kept his head down, his shoulders hunched. Emily moved quickly, her face streaked with tears she tried to hide. They did not look back, not once. A part of me, the part that had carried him as a baby, wanted them to turn, to meet my eyes. But they didn't. And maybe that was better, because had they looked, all they would have seen was a man who had finally drawn a line no one could cross again. The days after moved in a slow, deliberate rhythm. I called the bank. They confirmed the fraudulent draws were under investigation and assured me I would not be held liable. I called the credit bureau, placed alerts, and froze accounts. I sat across from Michael in his office while he explained the process to unwind the liens and void the quitclaim deed. He was confident. His tone was steady, as if this battle was just one of many he had fought and won. For me, it was my life. For him, it was law, and I was grateful the two had met at the right time. Each time he slid another document across the desk for my signature, I felt the weight of chains loosen a little more. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was repairing, reclaiming, restoring. Nights were different, too. I would sit in the living room, just me and the steady tick of the clock Linda gave me. The photo of our wedding still sat above the fireplace, but it looked brighter now, as if her eyes carried some approval across time. I whispered to her often, not with grief, but with gratitude. "We made it, Linda. They tried, but we held on." The house breathed with me again. Each creak in the floor, each whisper of wind against the window sounded like an old friend keeping watch. I was alone, but I was free, and with freedom came clarity. I called my estate planner and rewrote my will. No more gray areas, no more doors for manipulation. I left explicit instructions that 100% of the home's value, nearly $600,000, would fund a scholarship in Linda's name. A scholarship for students who, like David once was, dreamed of education but did not have the means. Except these students would honor the gift. They would not betray it. I smiled as I signed the papers, imagining a young woman or man, years from now, sitting in a library with a book they could afford because Linda's name had carried them there. That thought warmed me more than any hollow idea of family inheritance ever could. Blood ties can be broken by greed, but legacy, when chosen with care, lasts beyond betrayal. Meanwhile, David and Emily's world shrank. Word spread quickly. Mr. Bennett had not kept quiet. He had spoken plainly to his circle about fraudulent collateral, and in business, reputation is a currency that once spent cannot be regained. Michael told me that David was being investigated for mortgage fraud and financial misrepresentation. Emily, stripped of the image she had polished, was left to rent a small apartment across town, a far cry from the gleaming kitchen she once called her own. I did not rejoice in their suffering, but I also did not shield myself from it. Actions have consequences, and those consequences, long avoided, had finally arrived at their door. The contrast between their decline and my peace was stark, almost poetic. They lived in the shadow of what they had tried to steal. I lived in the light of what I had protected. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset over Linda's roses, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity tugged. I lifted the receiver, and the voice was David's. Weak, strained, unfamiliar. "Dad," he said, as if the word might unlock something between us. He stumbled through an apology. He said he was sorry. He said they had been desperate. He said he hadn't meant to hurt me, hadn't meant for it to go so far. His words tumbled out, thin and brittle, like dry leaves blown against a door. I listened, and when he was finished, I spoke with a calm that surprised even me. "David, an apology cannot return the years you betrayed me. It cannot erase the papers you forged or the laughter you gave when I was humiliated. I do not need your words anymore. What I need is peace, and peace means I cannot let you back in." My voice did not tremble. I placed the receiver gently back on its hook. The silence after was heavy, but it was mine. It was a choice, not a loss. In that silence, I felt something powerful. Freedom, not just from the lies and the fraud, but from the burden of carrying his failures as my own. Parents are told to forgive endlessly, to excuse endlessly, to sacrifice endlessly. But sacrifice without respect is not love. It is surrender. And I was done surrendering. I had finally chosen myself. Days passed into weeks, and I built new rhythms. I joined a small community group that met every Wednesday night to plan charity work. They welcomed me with warm smiles and strong coffee. They asked nothing of me but presence. They gave me stories of resilience, of others who had been betrayed but still stood tall. With them, I found companionship, not obligation. With them, I rediscovered purpose. Linda would have liked them. I could almost hear her laugh among theirs, blending into the hum of shared lives. The house itself grew lighter. I opened windows more often, let air move through rooms that had been heavy with secrets. I cooked simple meals, sat at the oak table Linda and I once crowded with family. Now it was just me, but the food tasted honest again. I tended the roses, trimmed the hedges, and patched the fence. Each small act was a claim. I am still here. I am still capable. I am still whole. Looking back, the lesson was clear. Blood may bind, but blood can also betray. Respect cannot be demanded by the accident of birth. It must be earned, day by day, in love and honesty. My son had forgotten that. My daughter-in-law had twisted it, and I had nearly paid with everything, but nearly is not the same as finally. I held my ground. I kept my dignity. And in doing so, I found a peace I did not know was still possible. One night, sitting again with Linda's photo, I whispered words that had been waiting for years. Self-respect matters more than blood. Blood can betray, but self-respect keeps us standing. Saying it aloud felt like closing a door that had been rattling in the wind. Behind it was the past, with its pain and broken trust. Ahead of it was the future, with its possibilities and calm. David may call again. Emily may try to write. They may one day want to mend what cannot be mended. But I will not answer. I will not meet. Some bridges are not meant to be rebuilt because the land they led to was never safe. My bridge now leads forward toward a life that honors Linda, honors me, and honors the truth that trust is more valuable than any inheritance. The chapter of betrayal is closed. What remains is a life reclaimed, a life steadied by boundaries, a life softened by the possibility of new beginnings. I ended that night on the porch, watching the stars rise over the quiet street. A notebook sat on my lap. I wrote a single line on the first page. I do not need them anymore. I have myself. And as I set the pen down, I knew that was enough. Chapter 6 was waiting, not with battle, but with renewal. And for the first time in a long while, I was ready to meet it. The mornings now feel different. The sunlight falls softer through the windows of my house, and for the first time in years, I don't wake with the weight of dread on my chest. The locks are mine, the papers are secure, and the air itself feels cleaner. After all the storms, I finally sit in a harbor that is truly my own. I joined the local senior center not because I was lonely, but because I wanted to share the lessons I had learned, lessons bought at a high price. They welcomed me as if I had always belonged there. On Wednesdays, I meet with the volunteer group, and together we plan small projects, a food drive, a visit to a nursing home, planting flowers along the sidewalks. I find joy in the simplest things, my hands in the soil, the smell of fresh dirt, a book on my lap in the quiet of the afternoon. When I read aloud to children at the library, their wide eyes remind me of the days I once read bedtime stories to David. The irony is sharp, but the comfort is sharper. I'm no longer weighed down by what I lost. I'm lifted by what I can still give. I tend to Linda's roses every morning. The red ones bloom fullest, almost defiantly. I speak to her as I water them, whispering updates as if she were still sitting on the porch beside me. "They tried to take it all, Linda," I murmur, "but we held on, and now our home stands not for betrayal, but for renewal." Sometimes I think I hear her laugh in the rustle of leaves, the kind of laugh that always told me we'd be all right. The house has stopped feeling haunted. It now feels alive again. News about David and Emily trickles in, though I don't go looking for it. A neighbor mentioned they moved into a cramped rental apartment on the far side of town. The place is nothing like what they tried to steal. Emily works part-time at a cafe, her polished image gone. David picks up odd jobs, but no one trusts him with responsibility anymore. Their reputation has been shredded, and trust, once lost, is almost impossible to rebuild. They wrote me letters, long, rambling things filled with apologies and explanations. The envelopes sit unopened in a drawer. I don't need their words. Words cannot repay betrayal. Words cannot clean ink from forged documents or erase the sound of their laughter when they thought I was weak. I will not answer. My silence is my boundary, and my peace lies in keeping it. Then, one afternoon, a different envelope arrived. This one was not from David or Emily, but from a young woman named Sarah. She had been awarded the Linda Grant Scholarship, funded by the very house my children had tried to steal. Her handwriting was neat but trembling with emotion. She thanked me for giving her the chance to attend college, a dream she thought was out of reach. She wrote that her mother worked double shifts at a diner, her father long gone, and that this scholarship was more than money. It was hope. She ended with the words, "You may never know me, but I will carry your wife's name with pride, and I will not waste the gift you've given me." As I read those lines, tears filled my eyes. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered to Linda, "Do you hear this? Our house is raising a new generation. It's feeding dreams instead of greed. Your name lives on." That night, for the first time, I slept without a single dream of betrayal. I slept with peace. The lessons have become clearer with time, and I often think about them. For parents, I say this: love your children, yes, but do not surrender all your power to them. Trust must be earned, even by those who share your blood. Protect your dignity, because without it, you are nothing more than a shadow in your own home. For children, my warning is sharper. Do not let greed rot the love that raised you. A fortune can be rebuilt, but a parent's trust, once shattered, may never return. Betrayal of blood is a wound that never truly heals. And for all of us, living in this restless modern world, the truth is plain. Temptation is everywhere, but character is everything. Money, property, possessions, all can be stolen, forged, or lost. But character, integrity, self-respect, that is the one inheritance no thief can touch. I often repeat to myself, I don't need their apology. I have my life. Those words are my anchor. They remind me that my worth does not depend on their acceptance, or their regret, or their forgiveness. My worth rests in the choices I make, the peace I guard, and the dignity I keep. And each day I live by that truth. I feel stronger. Some evenings I sit in the park down the road, watching children chase one another across the grass while their parents laugh nearby. I think of the arc of my own story, how it began with sacrifice, bent into betrayal, and now has settled into renewal. The air smells of fresh-cut grass, the sky turns shades of orange and purple, and I realize that every sunset feels like a promise. The promise that tomorrow will not be stolen from me, no matter who tries. The unopened letters from David remain in the drawer, but I know I will never read them. They belong to the past, the same as the forged signatures and whispered schemes. My story no longer belongs to their lies. It belongs to me, and to the quiet joy of mornings with roses, evenings in the park, and letters from students whose futures are being built on the foundation of my endurance. My boundaries are firm, my peace is steady, my heart is open, not to betrayal, but to life. In the end, the lesson is simple, though it took me decades to learn it. Family is not defined by blood, but by respect. Legacy is not defined by inheritance, but by integrity. And peace is not handed to you, it is chosen day by day, sometimes against those you once loved most. I have chosen peace, I have chosen dignity, and because of that, I have chosen myself. The story has come to an end. I hope it has brought you valuable lessons and insights. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next video. Goodbye, and see you again.